Welcome to Unofficial Canon, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Tavin.
I'm Brendan.
And we're here discussing everything that is canon and non-canon, if we're being honest. This being our first episode, we are going to take a cue from George Lucas himself and start at the end of the story. We're going to be talking about The Last Jedi.
I can't wait.
Yeah. So just to counter-react everything that's going on the internet right now, we're going to start with what we liked about The Last Jedi. Why don't we start with Brendan? Did you like the movie?
I did. Not as a Star Wars movie, which is a weird qualifier, and there were parts of it that I liked about a Star Wars movie, but it was a fun movie. And then on a second watch, it was like, oh, it doesn't really hold up on a second watch.
I think I had the opposite experience.
Really?
Yeah, because I saw it and initially I was kind of like, oh, I don't like this movie. And then the second time I watched it, I was like, I got a little more into it, but I'm still like on the fence. Like I'm not willing to say if I liked it or not yet.
Right. You're still undecided.
Yeah. I think we're going to have to wait till the Blu-ray release to make a decision on it.
Well, I mean, in that case, you can watch it with all the others and see how it holds up.
Yes, that's true. In the 12-hour marathon that will have to happen because you need context, right?
Exactly.
You need all that history.
Well, I think for me, what I liked on the first watch and what I liked on the second watch even more was Luke, Rey, and Kylo.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those three shine through in the movie. I like the direction Luke went. I know he's not the like superpowered Jedi Wonder Man that he became in the old EU, which I'm sure we'll talk about on a different episode. But on the first watch, I didn't mind, Star Wars Battlestar Galactica and Star Wars Las Vegas. I didn't mind those. On a second watch, it was like, these aren't even Star Wars, And like I say, I refer to Battlestar Galactica Star Wars because that's exactly what it was. Oh, we're running out of fuel.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
Yeah, I would say that there's a lot of hate on the internet for the Luke kind of like being disenfranchised kind of by the Jedi Order. And it's like, okay, well, what did you expect? He's gone into hiding.
Exactly.
Like, I don't understand. People are expecting him to immediately train Rey. It's like, no, there was going to be some kind of conflict, like internal conflict with that character.
Yeah.
And I was totally fine with it. But yeah, I'd say like the whole Rey, Kylo, Luke thing was engaging and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was funny because like there were a lot of fan theories I know before going into the movie. People were like, "Oh, Kylo and Rey are gonna, they want to just have a relationship," and I was like, "Well, that's kind of an interesting narrative we've never seen before. Will they do it?" And the answer is, kind of.
Right. Yeah, and I don't even know if it would go further than where it is.
That's the question. Like I don't want to speculate too much, but I don't want to speculate.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that. But I don't know. Even from just the standpoint that like, from the spiritual force aspect, there's some kind of connection there. It's way more interesting. Because I mean, if it wasn't that, it would just be like, I'm the new Darth Vader, and you're the new Luke Skywalker, and we will fight with our laser swords, and that'll be the show.
Yeah, exactly. And it would just be the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. Which brings me to Snoke.
Yeah.
I really like the fact that Snoke was basically just a throwaway, like that he just dies.
Yeah, me too.
And it's over. Although it was funny because I was thinking about this today right before we were recording is because I know a bunch of people who didn't like that, and they're the people who only watch the movies.
Right.
And I think one of the reasons I'm okay with it is like, oh, we'll get a novel. We'll get a novel.
We'll probably get a novel trilogy.
Yeah, about Snoke.
Yeah.
Or a comic book or something that will like explain who he is. So I'm not concerned, but I can see why someone who only watches those films would be like, oh,
why'd they do that?
I had questions.
Yeah.
Please answer them.
But I mean, I think because this is happening 30 years after the original trilogy, like you have to go into it and be like, I'm not going to get anything explained to me. And anything that does happen, what happened between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, that's all novel territory. Mm-hmm. And that's all like cartoon show territory. And so when you get a big bad like Snoke, I expect the EU to flesh him out. And I'm fine killing him off in the movies. But yeah, I guess if you're just a movie watcher, that's a huge letdown. And you're like, well, this guy was, I mean, he was important enough to like take fashion advice from Goldmember, and you just snuff him out. So yeah, I can see the outrage, but yeah, I mean, we'll get the EU. Hopefully it's well written. That's 50-50, but
Now, without going too far into what I didn't like, the Battlestar Galactica spaceship fight, the only thing that I really enjoyed, and it's only because as a character he's the only one with a real arc, would be Poe.
yeah.
There's aspects to the external things that happen to him that don't make any sense, but like overall he's the only character that in my mind truly grows. Like you can see he starts here and he ends over there, where like, you know, as much as I'm like, oh, I love the Rey Kylo stuff, it's like Kylo Ren doesn't really change that much.
No.
And Rey doesn't really change that much.
She gets a mullet.
She's a girl. She has long hair. Like I don't understand that. She's got a mullet. She's a girl. The hair's long. Deal with it. But yeah, Poe's like the only one who really grows.
Yeah. Well, and I think they're setting him up to be the next leader of the Resistance.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a certain level of these movies are like they're passing the torch movies.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if Lucas had decided to make these even 15 years ago, we might have gotten our OP Luke from the EU for a few movies.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, to go to that, I did like Poe, and he did change from just being like a hotshot pilot who only cares about, you know, getting in his X-Wing and blowing things up, to someone who cares about more than that by the end.
Yeah. I guess. Well, it's again,
he seems a little bit more responsible by the time they get to the base.
Yeah. Well, and it's like I'll probably talk about this a lot on podcasts where it's like movies are made for like stupid people, and like you need to have a layer of stupid people so that, you know, the movie is easily understood by everyone. And that's why a lot of people say like, oh, Star Wars is made for kids, and it's because there needs to be the surface level story that a 12-year-old can understand.
Absolutely.
And then you have like the deeper stuff. So like you look at Empire, and Empire is like a very straightforward story, but then there's themes within that it's playing with that are like way more interesting.
Exactly.
So like Poe is a good example of like something 12-year-olds can understand, because it's like the movie starts with him blowing up the turrets on the ship to do this crazy, let's bomb the ship and throw away all these lives. And then at the end of the movie, he's on Crate and he's like, oh, this is a suicide mission. Pull back. We're not going to blow up the big cannon thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's super on the nose, but you need that so that the 12-year-olds can understand it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But yeah, that's the only character that I'm like, I can very easily see their arc.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's the only character that isn't a Force user that actually has some kind of development in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. What else did I like? Let me think. Well, there are these little character moments, and there's one that really sticks out in my mind, and they're just like super short. Like it's obviously like Rian Johnson is a good filmmaker. Like I think he understands the tools of the trade really well. I'll say that in this episode, so it'll give context to the next episode.
Exactly.
But there's the scene where I think it's like the first or the second time that Rey and Kylo do the like Force doobly-doo. And she's just walked out of the Millennium Falcon and it's raining, and she like puts out her hand.
Oh yeah.
And she feels the water and she smiles, and it's like that's a nice little moment where you're like, oh, this character's from a desert,
right?
They've never seen rain before, and she's like legitimately happy about it.
Exactly.
And it's like just this small little moment that if you blink, you miss it, but like it makes the movie feel more real. Makes those characters feel more real.
Agreed. And another point of that for me was when one of the Force connections comes up, right? And so you've got Kylo doing his space Nazi thing, and you've got Rey doing her Jedi training thing, and she's like, I don't want to do this right now, and Kylo's like, yeah, neither do I. And it's just that nice little humanizing moments of these people where it's like, okay, so they don't even want this connection, and they're trying to struggle through this connection between the two of them and what it means. And I think these new movies have a bit more of those humanizing moments, certainly than the prequels or even the original trilogy in a way.
Yeah, there's a little more humanity in that, I think, and I think it's because the other ones were truly just space operas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole theme of this movie is that like failure is a good thing to a certain extent, and there's Luke Skywalker's not treated like a legend or anything. There's a little bit more reality injected into it. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for Star Wars, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I can see what you're saying with
I don't know how many more movies I can take of that.
Yes. Well, we'll find out.
But it's a nice change so far.
Yeah, and I get to a certain, we want to see something different. Right?
Yeah.
And like if there has to be one large good thing to come out of Last Jedi, it's that it's different, right?
Yes.
Everyone was worried that it was going to be Empire.
Exactly.
And it's actually closer in tone to Return of the Jedi, I think.
Right down to having cute little animals in it.
Yeah, because Empire was very people talk about it being the darkest Star Wars. It's not like Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, but it's dark. Like there's not really humor in it. Like there wasn't A New Hope or Return. It's like it is the darkest, most takes itself seriously movie in the franchise. And then Return of the Jedi had that. It had moments like that. But you're right, it had furry creatures and Ewoks and
I'm sure we'll get to it when we talk about Return of the Jedi, but I feel like that's two movies. I feel like there's Jabba's Palace, which has a certain tone and a feel to it. And then you've got Endor, which feels like George Lucas had complete control over it in a way.
Which The Last Jedi definitely has to a certain extent, right?
Yes.
Although I will say I think it does a pretty good job at balancing the humor, but there are times that it goes too far.
Mm-hmm. Like the phone call at the start.
Yeah, the phone call is fine until like the second or third last line.
Yeah.
And then it goes straight to Poe making a like yo mama joke.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, we should have just like taken that back just a little bit.
Yeah.
But, either than that, I didn't mind that scene. Like it was kind of like a fun way to open the movie.
Yeah, and it wasn't offensive. And it was within Poe's character, because you think about him in The Force Awakens, and the first thing he says when he gets brought before Kylo Ren is like, okay, do I talk? Do you talk? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then like, I can't understand you with that face thing on. So like, he's a funny character. It's just, is he Yo Mama funny? I don't think in 2017 anybody is Yo Mama funny.
That's the character we're waiting to see in Star Wars.
Exactly.
Yeah. What else did you like, Brendan? Anything else?
It looked nice.
The effects, they do a really good job in these Disney movies of like blending the CG with the practical.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything in space is CG, which is fine because it's easier to render out ships than it is like creatures.
Yeah.
Something that I wish George Lucas had learned.
Don't even get me started. We'll wait for the prequels to discuss this.
Yes. But yeah, they do a really good job. Like even, I think the only thing that no, we can save that. But like, yeah, the porgs, them being practical puppets.
Yeah.
And then like just whenever they like fly away, it's obviously that they go to CG, but you can't tell because they're flying away.
No, exactly.
Yeah, it's really smart. I'm glad they didn't have a big super weapon that we had to destroy in this movie.
Well, that wouldn't be in the spirit of Empire, would it?
No. I guess that's at least they learned something where they're like, okay, let's not do this. Hopefully they don't do another super weapon.
I don't see how they could, but it's Star Wars, right? So
yeah,
who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird.
It's really hard to stay like, let's just talk about the positive without being like, I like this, but I don't like this aspect of this. Because the movie is so divisive for a reason. Is because it's like in one moment it's like, oh, that's really cool, and the next moment it's like, oh,
Right? Yeah, exactly.
like for instance, I really like the porgs. Like first, the marketing leading up to really worked on me. I was excited for porgs. I was sending the porg gifs. I was already into porgs.
It's true, he was.
And there's like the scene of Chewie at night and he's roasting a porg and there's all the porgs. I love that. I think that's a great little moment. When there's like 20 TIE fighters flying after the Millennium Falcon and there's like a porg and he like smashes against the window. I was like, that's too much.
Yeah.
You've taken it too far.
But what was nice was that he didn't push it further than that.
No. Well, and it's funny because in that same scene they have him. He's like, there's the porg on the dashboard, and Chewie just like flicks him off. It's like if they had just done that, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's all they needed to do, especially at this stage, because the porgs were there to cover up Puffins.
Yeah.
And so by the time you get on the Millennium Falcon, hopefully there's no Puffins on that thing. Like, who's in charge of keeping that set clear if you've got Puffins all over the place?
Well, they had to hurry. They didn't have time to like de-porg the Millennium Falcon because they had to go take Rey to her boyfriend's house.
No. I mean, in the context of the movie, yes. I'm talking about in the context of like real shooting.
Oh.
So it's unnecessary to have the porgs past the point of them leaving Octu. And so it is nice that they set up nests in the Falcon, and it is nice that there's that like, wah, 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 and Chewie's just like, stupid bird, I'm going to roast you later.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one hitting the window, it's just like, we get it. You've sold enough.
Yes. I will be interested, and I will just leave this as a note. I will be interested to see if porgs continue on in episode 9. Because traditionally, if a creature character is introduced, they're gone the next movie. And I would be okay with porgs just being a one movie thing. As long as they're not like, we need a new porg. What can we put in the...
Yeah, what can we do that's cute and little?
Yeah.
And the kiddies will buy.
Yeah.
With big eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, we'll see. Maybe they'll become a food source for the Resistance.
I did see that theory online that someone posted that Chewie, like, because they're so friendly and so easily like captured, he just took a bunch on the Falcon to like breed and then consume, and that's how they're going to feed the Resistance.
You know what? I like this theory. I like this idea that Chewbacca, a hero of the Clone Wars, thank you, Lucas, for shoehorning in another OT character into the prequels, a hero of the original trilogy, right? Like this big war hero who's been around for like 100 years fighting, and this go round he's just going to be like, you know what? I'm done fighting, guys. So I'm going to be the Resistance chef.
He's just supply chain management at this point.
Exactly. Quartermaster Chewie.
He's going to open a company called Cisco, and we'll have Cisco branding in the movies.
I like it.
Yeah. No, I'm sure everyone will love it. Everyone will love it. Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to think, is there anything else that I really liked?
The score.
You know, I'm on the fence about the score.
Really?
The first time I watched it, I actually didn't really enjoy the score that much. I mean, it's like Star Wars. It's like your traditional Star Wars. And then there's like the scene with Projection Luke where he literally just goes full opera. He's like, okay, this is a ridiculous scene. This is something straight out of like a soap opera. So I'm just going to go full space opera. And he quite literally has opera music going there. It's like, that's funny. But I mean, I don't know if there was anything that really grabbed me. Like, that wasn't already in 7. And maybe that's just the way it is, it being kind of a middle movie. We're not introducing anyone really new or interesting, so there's not going to be a new theme or anything like that. Yeah, I'm not. The second time I watched it, I did notice the opera.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, okay, John Williams, okay, you did a good job. Never mind. Why did I ever doubt you? But it's interesting because like I saw Last Jedi before Christmas, and then over Christmas, every channel on the face of the earth is having Star Wars marathons, and like you end up watching a bunch of the prequels over and over again. And I was like, I really like the music, and the music in the prequels is what like makes those movies. Like it's like if there's an actor on screen and they're not emoting, John Williams is like, well, I have to do something here.
Well, at least someone realized it.
So what I'm trying to complain about is that people act too well in Last Jedi to let the score do its job.
I think that might have something to do with like having competent directors.
Well, at least actors that understand character.
That too.
And feelings.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would, yeah.
Human interaction.
Yeah.
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 That is handy. All right, so does that cover all the things we liked? Because I mean, we're digging.
We're digging
deep.
now.
If we're like John Williams did a passable job.
we could go into like the obvious things. It's like that lightsaber fight with Kylo Ren and Rey, where they worked together and they were doing flips and shit off of each other's backs. Yeah, that's awesome. Like it was one of the better fight sequences.
Yeah, and what I liked about it was that it was clear that there were two powerful Force users. Right, but that they didn't go to the prequel levels of flips and shit.
No,
because I hate that in lightsaber fights.
Well, and I have headcanon that can explain that away, but we can talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that at a later date.
Later. But yeah, no, it was definitely like, it felt like if I can. Again, hard to talk about something that I really like.
Yeah.
And the reason that it's really good when I can compare it to something else in the movie and why it's really bad is that fight, there's like actual tension and you feel like they could lose.
Yes.
At any moment, right? And I don't think you ever really feel that in the prequel movies. They're just like, they're just swinging swords until something happens, right? But that movie, they're getting sweaty. They're like having issues. I'm especially worried for Rey in that scene because I'm like, Kylo has been like properly trained, and Rey obviously is having a bit more trouble. Like she's only fighting one dude at a time, and he's like fighting four because he's Kylo Ren.
Exactly.
And yeah, you really feel like bad things are going to happen.
Yeah, and you don't know, if Rey is gonna come out on top. And then what I like, the fight's over, and then Kylo's like, join me, please. Which just shows another layer of like, because, Vader, when he's like, come with me, Luke, you and I will rule the galaxy together. Like, it's an order.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren is there, and he's just like, please come with me.
Well, this is why this character, like, it's funny because I say Rey is not that interesting by her own, and Kylo Ren's not really interesting by her own, but together they're super interesting. Like in that moment specifically where he reaches out his hand, and it's a gloved hand, and he's like, join me, please. There's so much like those storytelling tools, those filmmaking tools that I talk about, because earlier when they do the Uncle Luke tells them no touchy in the hut scene, he's got bare hands. Right? And then at that point, he's got the glove. And if you're familiar with Star Wars, costume design, like colors and things like that always indicate where a character is in relation to the Force. So the best example is Luke, Return of the Jedi. He's got the completely black outfit on. And so he's like super close to that edge. And so it's at that point that like, he's not asking her to join him in like the middle.
No, exactly.
He's
like,
asking
come
her
to my side.
Come to the dark side. And she says no, obviously. Like I feel like, and a lot of people have said, oh man, it would be really awesome if they had done that. And it would have been interesting, but that's not where Kylo was at that moment. He wasn't willing to meet her halfway. He was like, come over.
No, exactly.
And that's why she says no, right? And it's again, we come back to, we make the movie for 12-year-olds, and then we have these like deep things in here that are like for the adults, and that's why Star Wars is good.
Yes.
And specifically that scene.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, so that covers what we liked.
I think so. Oh, you know what? There's one other thing that we really haven't talked. We're not digging in too deep. We're just kind of coming up with what's coming off the top of our heads when we actually get into movies that we can like watch the Blu-ray of and pause and shit, we'll get really into that.
Yeah.
But the one other thing that we haven't talked about, which everyone has talked about, so we must talk about it.
Of course, that's the way the internet works.
Is Puppet Yoda tree lightning.
Yeah. I liked it.
I did like Puppet Yoda was good. Definitely fan service.
Oh, of course. Yeah, but and maybe it's just because I'm a lifelong Star Wars fan,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm okay with bits of fan service provided it's done well.
Oh, yeah.
And little Puppet Yoda, so not CGI Yoda, Puppet Yoda,
Mm-hmm.
where he just loves the fact that he burned the tree down so much that his little puppet feet are kicking while he's Yoda laughing. I don't care. Sign me up. That is pure Star Wars fan service done right.
Yeah, it was really well done. And even like their little conversation is good. And then the other thing that comes out of that scene that's really great is the whole, Yoda being really cheeky and being like, oh, she already possesses everything that she needed from those books. And it's because she's literally scavenged those books.
Yeah.
Which is, a nice little nod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that Yoda, 900-year-old super Yoda, has the power as a Force ghost to make a tree explode.
Yeah, no, I didn't have an issue with that. My whole thing is that like it's obviously that the Force guides you places and does things, and because they're part of the Force, I think there's certain things that they can and cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
Like the example I always use is going to another sci-fi property is Doctor Who, where Doctor Who is always like, oh, there's times where he's like, I can't meddle with this timeline. And you just have to accept that as an audience. You can't,
exactly.
You can't, it's Time Lord magic, and so this is Force Ghost magic.
Yeah.
Right? There's things they can and cannot do. So yeah.
I think that covers it.
I think that's it. I'm sure there's still more stuff, and we will do a detailed run through when the Blu-ray comes out. I actually did see the other day that this is the first Star Wars film that will be released in 4K Ultra HD.
Ooh.
So I will get ready to shell out that money for a movie that I didn't super enjoy, but
I'll happily buy the standard edition on Google Play.
Digital downloads.
Woohoo!
All right, well that does it for episode 1. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, thanks for coming by.